Well, we're recording.
Yay! Hello, Fabiola.
Hello, Saffron. I'm gonna pull out my ukulele.
Oh no!
If people want to date the recording of this,
It's gonna. I mean, yeah.
it's on the.
It's gonna be real dated. It's gonna be real. This is gonna be coming out in like October.
It's fun when these are dated. I think it's so fun because then you can look back at the exact date that we recorded this.
Yeah, the exact date that YouTube history was made with the worst apology YouTube video to date. And that's all we're gonna say about it.
Also, somehow the best.
Yeah, I see. The thing is that it's like I don't feel like in the right place to joke about it because it is a pretty serious like allegations, but she did make
that video
made a fool of herself. So yeah.
Anyways,
let's talk about something completely different, though still camp in a way. I guess you.
Yeah.
We were always talking about camp stuff here. Hey Fabiola. Hey Fabiola. What's an exploitation film?
Well, I took a bunch of screenshots from the Grindhouse database.
Oh, okay. Because, well, today we are watching an exploitation film, specifically.
Well, we have watched it. We're just gonna discuss it.
Oh, well, yeah, we're discussing it. I went in blind, completely blind. And I feel like this. I need some context.
The next movie is gonna be so fun for you to go in blind and like with our pre-discussion, pre-recording.
Well, let's not talk about the next film. Let's talk about this film.
I'm just putting out a little tease, just saying that the next one will be interesting to go in blind. Today's film is Coffy from 1973, starring the Pam Grier.
Who I know is like, this is kind of her thing, right? She stars in films like this.
Yes, she is one of the iconic actors from this genre.
And then she's also in the L Word.
Yeah, she's also in the L Word, but to like most of the entertainment world, she's not really that well recognized, unfortunately, but within Grindhouse exploitation history, she's one of the key figures of this mode of filmmaking. Basically, from the Grindhouse/exploitation database, there's an entire section detailing the history and various subgenres. And so it explains that exploitation films feature uncut, unrated material. They specialize in numerous sex and nudity scenes, bloody gore, violence, and taboos. They were most popular in the late 1960s through the late 1970s. Most are low-budget films that would not be played in theaters today and most likely receive an NC-17 rating. Such films have existed since the earliest days of movie making, but they were popularized in the 1960s with the general relaxing of cinematic taboos in the US and Europe. Additionally, low-budget filmmakers use sensational elements to attract audiences lost to television. Since the 1990s, the genre has also received attention from academic circles, where it is sometimes called paracinema.
Wait, why paracinema? Because it's like,
I think it stands for parallel cinema. It's basically it's mostly like a counterculture to standard cinema.
And is the idea of like okay, exploitation as a word, in my understanding, is that like that means to kind of, well, actually, what is the definition of exploitation? Because in my brain, it's kind of like to use someone to kind of like it's like to exploit someone is that you're kind of like using them for your own gain.
Yeah, that's the usual standard common definition. But within the film world, it's a genre.
So it doesn't actually mean that there's like any mistreatment of actors or.
Not necessarily, no. It's just regarding the subject matter.
So it's exploiting sexuality to gain viewer attention.
Basically.
I see.
Because, like, if we were going with the traditional definition of exploitation, all kinds of genres would be in the list of, like, here are films that behind the scenes were legitimately exploiting people. That could be any movie.
Oh God, yeah. But I guess I mean I was wondering if like because I feel like I've heard like black exploitation used more often than just
Well, it's
exploitation
a
films. And
subgenre.
so I guess I was like, oh, is that like specifically utilizing like black actors to kind of like bring in a certain audience? But it's less about the black is more who's producing it and less like there's an actual difference in content.
Well, it's mostly about the narrative of the film itself and who is starring in the film, because Coffy was
Mm,
written and directed by Jack Hill, who is white.
okay.
So the database defines black exploitation, and it notes the word was not coined by white people but by a black person. And black exploitation films were made with black actors for black audiences, often taking place within a stereotypically African American urban backdrop. A prominent theme was African Americans overcoming the man through cunning and violence. The progenitor of this exploitation genre is usually credited to Martin Van Peebles' Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, although Gordon Parks Sr.'s Shaft is truly the prototype for the standard action-oriented films of this genre.
Mm, yes, I've definitely
Yeah,
heard of Shaft.
I watched it in Smith for one of my classes. The song is really good.
Which class?
I don't remember which class specifically, but I know I did watch it in screening room at the art building.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's what I remember.
Before we kind of get into the specifics of Coffy, I remember I don't know if it was you or if I read it or somewhere that the idea that one of our favorite films, Assassination Nation, could be called an exploitation
Yeah,
film or like a teen
yeah,
exploitation film, as I kind of
yeah.
remember the term.
Although teen exploitation is usually denotes more the audience for those films,
Um,
although it could kind of be categorized as teen
yeah, I
exploitation.
mean it's like Gen Z.
I'd say it leans more towards sexploitation, but it's also giallo, and giallo is often really sexual, so
Mm.
the subgenre lines blur a lot.
But I guess I mean the thing that Assassination Nation has is that it's not necessary. It wasn't necessarily low budget, so it's not just that it's. So that's a an aspect of these films. It's not just the sexuality and the
Yeah,
violence. It's also the low budgetness and the kind of
yeah,
like
and
counterculture.
they were low budget, but they did make, at least at this specific period in time, they did make a lot of money at the box office. Coffee was a
Mm,
top
mm-hmm.
box office film of the year.
And honestly, would it have been rated NC-17? Because there's sex, but there isn't like a lot of
I feel
sex.
like it really depends on the movie.
Well, okay, let's get into the plot of Coffy.
So, Coffee basically follows the titular character, Coffee, played by Pam Grier, who is a nurse, but she's also a vigilante hunting down drug pushers because her little sister has basically gotten addicted and is rehabbing in a facility for drug abuse.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like I get the sense that she is going after people because of this personal vendetta. That's like she wouldn't have done this otherwise, but she just got so angry that she took revenge and kind of got caught up in this bigger issue than she realized.
Yes.
Because she kills this drug dealer, or these two drug dealers, and then she's dating a city council member who's
Yeah.
also then running for Congress, but has a relationship had a past relationship with this cop, Marcus? Yeah. No, Carter. And then Carter gets beat up, and then she gets beat up, and then so she's kind of like, let me take revenge on then those people, because it's all part of the same system of chain of drugs and sex. And
Yeah, well, kinda, because like the people that beat them up are, I'm pretty sure, are also police.
yeah, because Carter was he was not he basically was like, they were gonna try to pay him off to, be like, oh, they're like, oh, you should get in on this or whatever, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna take your offer. I'm going to get you guys anyway. And then they beat him up because they don't want to. I'm phrasing it poorly, but he has this like phone conversation, and then the house gets broken into. So it's kind of implied that like they beat him up because they didn't want to. He didn't want to.
Yeah.
He was fighting the good fight. He's one of the good guys.
Yeah, that's basically what happened.
And then everyone else that she meets is corrupt, including, we find out, the congressman or the city council member, Howard.
Yeah, I want to get into like some fun facts, but also one of the letterbox reviews that I saw said something like, this film is kind of like, and like it seems to be against notions of quote unquote good representation.
Oh, that is a good point. I mean, they definitely they're like, Howard's politics are really interesting, I think. And like the way it's kind of like, oh well, I'm he's in it for money, but then he gives this little speech to Coffy about how, oh well, with money and power, that's the way we change the system, like, but he also was gonna let her die. Like, I don't like he definitely, like, he knows the right words to like look good on TV.
He's also cheating on her.
Yeah, he's cheating on her. He doesn't like, and I don't know, but also like, I don't. This is getting into it. We're getting into it, but like I also am like, what are the politics of this film in terms of like its how it represents the police? Because yes, it shows like many of these police officers are corrupt and are, being paid off or working with these drug dealers and like crime boss guys, like Vetroni is kind of the main guy. But then you also got Carter, who's like, he's one of the good guys and he's a cop, and he's,
but he also
like,
kind of gets quote unquote put in his place by the other police.
yeah, I don't know. I think it's this film made me want to research more, the like, and discuss more and learn more about how exploitation films handle police. Because while it does seem to be like they are bad guys, it doesn't, I'm not sure how much it's like, oh, the system of the police force is bad. It's very much like it's all about the kind of the individuals and the individual choices they make. It doesn't see a lot of the politics of this film doesn't really seem to be like, I mean, it's like it's there, but also I'm like, how much are they asking, like, why do people make these choices? They're just like, they make these choices, and Pam Grier doesn't like, that they've hurt the people that she cares about, and so she's gonna, go blow up their car. Like, yeah. And that's fine. It's fun like to watch.
Part of the reason why there's been so much academic interest in this genre recently, because the goal of exploitation films is to just entertain and just watch cool stuff happen. But like they're also like not entirely shallow, and but they're also like not aiming to be political either.
Yeah, well, I would say that there's politics, but there's
Yeah.
not like theory.
And I am like fascinated by exploitation film as a whole. I think they're just really cool and a moment in history that we have not seen again, and at this current moment probably will never see again.
Why would you have hope?
I try.
I mean, I don't know. The X that me, I'm now. This is like totally like spitballing, but I wonder if there could be a re-emergence of exploitation media, if not films, because yeah, there is this the kind of the art of a movie theater, like the is that in many ways does
Yeah,
seem to be dying, but
because I there definitely are modern exploitation films being made. They just aren't being put into theaters, at least not as
yeah.
often.
Yeah, I wonder like how I mean how essential is the movie theater viewing experience to these kinds of to this genre?
I mean, they're because they're all about like so much wild stuff happening on the screen. It would be kind of not as entertaining to watch them alone.
And yet that's what I did. I sat at my computer and watched it
Yeah,
alone.
but if we were living back in the 70s, there were no computers like we know them now. We'd go to the movie theater.
Yeah, and I guess it's interesting that you said in that read that quote that was one of the things is that was pulling people away from TV because you could only really
Yeah.
see that in a theater.
Yeah.
There wasn't that kind of stuff on television, and now there is
Yeah.
exploitation
And
TV.
people don't like it.
Yeah, that's that's really interesting. Actually,
We'll get
this is
into
like
the movie
now.
soon, but
Yeah, we'll get. But I now we'll get into the movie soon. But I'm like suddenly now I'm thinking about like what is like event moment media. We have so little like one of the things I think that is so exciting about the Barbie and Oppenheimer like same day release is that there's like this like the in theaterness of like you can only see it in theaters. You're going
and there's the double feature appeal, which was a pretty common thing
yeah,
back
the
in the
double
day. People would sometimes spend entire days at the movie theater watching different movies.
but what I mean, I'm trying to think of like what is like oh my god, it's the premiere, we got to go to it anymore except like superhero
Yeah.
films. And even that is a dying like fascination. Like blockbusters don't get the same kind of like excitement if you're going to see it opening night kind of. And maybe that's partly because of COVID, but also like there's this culture shift that now I feel like it's much more of like an event to see a episode of television.
Yeah, I feel like part of it is just the usual structure of television, which is weekly, and then you can talk about it with friends.
Yeah. And I mean I wonder if like has there been research in like well okay, what led to the dying of exploitation films in you said late 70s? Like was it just like a shift in culture or
Both a shift in culture and the blockbuster.
oh, because
Yeah.
that's what was bringing people to film.
Yeah, the blockbuster was born in the mid to late 70s.
Yeah. Because I'm also like, well, in terms of like sexual media, the internet changed everything in terms of just everything is so much more accessible. You know, you just Google up what kind of porn you like and you can watch it. You don't have to like
Yeah.
go to a theater.
But these movies have more of like a plot to them.
Well, yeah. But I don't know. I wonder I wonder if one of the things that has led to a rise in puritanism and criticism of sexuality in media is because it is not seen as a kind of art. And I wonder if it's not seen as a kind of art because it has become so accessible. There's like I don't know if this is like weird too out there or not. I've not read anything about this. Maybe other people have said it, maybe other people have not. I don't know, but like you know, like if there's high demand or like high what's the word? There's economic
Supply and
terms for
demand.
this, like yeah, like there's high supply. It's just it's not gonna be like as you have over access to stuff. It's like, well, it's not
Yeah.
as exciting anymore. I don't know. Is that anything?
Again, this is going to date the episode, but one of the weird responses to the idol, which I do feel like there are, like the show is like poorly written and acted, but I think it's interesting how so much of the criticism of the show is there's too much sex in the show and how a lot of it is very much phrased as why is this on TV? This should not be on TV. This should be on porn.
Yeah. Like that definitely seems to imply that people don't think that sexuality expressions of sexuality can be that's not a legitimate media. It's not that's not legitimate media. Or porn isn't legitimate media. Like it has to be secretive, which is like it's human nature.
Yeah. Do you want to get into the
Yeah,
Yeah.
the sex of the movie.
So have you ever watched like trailers from Hell video?
No, what is that?
It's according to Joe Dante's Twitter bio, it's his side gig, but it's basically I've at least only seen the video version of it, but on their YouTube, it's basically like they bring in various directors to either like talk about the movies they made over a trailer that's playing in the video or about movies that they really like or influenced. A lot of them are B movies. And so Jack Hill, the director of Coffy, did a video for Coffy on it, and he like says some fun facts. How, for example, he had previously worked with Pam Grier on other films of his, but
Hmm.
she was only a supporting actor. So this was
Oh.
her leading role debut. And Jack Hill is one of the claimants to have discovered Pam Grier because various directors have claimed to have discovered her. Because, like, she is technically an extra in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls by Russ Meyer. Yeah, so that's I feel like that speaks to how iconic of a figure she is within this genre that there are like
Mm.
multiple directors going, no, I discovered her. And the film was the concept for the film was brought to Hill by American International Pictures as like an assignment, and at first he wasn't entirely sure if he was creatively the right choice for it. He was like,
Mm.
I've never made a film within this genre and I'm not sure I can pull it off. But he did various meetings with Pam and they discussed ideas, and so she almost kind of co-wrote the film.
So, had he not made blaxploitation films
No, he had
before,
made
or?
exploitation films in
Hmm.
general, but not within this subgenre.
I see. I have a question that is maybe answered by the fun facts or not. Is her name Coffee Coffin? Or is Coffee short for coffin?
It's a nickname for Coffin because I
Okay.
watched it with subtitles on. And I feel like it's really cool that her name is Coffin, considering she's a vigilante.
Yeah.
Or as the tagline in the poster says, a one woman hit squad.
That's, I mean, I think that is one of my favorite parts of the film when they're asking her, like these Vitroni and his men are like, "Who are you working for?" And she's like, "Oh, it's King George," and like is trying to kind of, you know, get him killed because she hates him too. But it's so fun to me that they never consider that she's all on her own. So she always has to be working for someone else. And it's like, no, she's that badass. She's done everything by herself.
Coffee, where the action is, there Coffee is. Coffee, godmother of them all. The baddest one-chick hit squad that ever hit town. Coffy.
Yeah, and Pam Grier was basically, like, in a meta-narrative sense, she was the first female lead of a blaxploitation film ever. That's part of why she's so iconic within the genre.
Yeah. I definitely, and I also think that, like, I mean, the fact that she is a woman is, and I mean, she's a Black woman, like, is essential to her characterization and to the plot of the film. That is how she's able to get stuff done. She uses her sexuality from the very first scene that we meet her in. She uses her sexuality that, and basically kind of like lures people, these men, to be vulnerable around her, and then she kills them.
Yeah. And that's part of one of the camp aspects of it, and how a lot of what she does is an act. It's artificial, but it's also really genuine at the same time. The violence is real and personal to her.
Yeah. Well, also, if we're talking like artificial, I think the campiest aspect of that film, of the film, is the horror, like the absolutely fake ass Jamaican accent that she does. That nobody questions, and absolutely fools this guy because he likes them exotic, as she finds out.
She looks so glamorous at the pool. She looks so good.
She looks so good, and then all she has to do to convince them that she's Jamaican is just go, "Mon," at the end of each sentence. And it, like, I mean, that to me just felt so, like, yeah, it feels so fake and in a really fun way.
I thought you were also going to mention the dummies getting thrown around throughout this movie.
Honestly, I didn't even notice. I mean, they didn't. The thing is that I didn't notice it ever, like, one moment of like, oh, that looks like a fake body, because there's just something so, like, ungraceful about all of the fight sequences that it all just works. Like, I think I wrote it in my notes that oh yeah, rough and tumble fight sequences. It's just very slapstick kind of, and just like being thrown all over the place and messy, and especially that fight that all of King George's girls have.
Oh, that's one of my favorite scenes.
Oh, Meg, you don't have any salad.
They're it's so like,
it's so much,
so messy, just like the dumping of a Caesar salad bowl and throwing of bottles, and all their dresses get stained and ripped, and
like, specifically just opened at the chest. Like, a good 90% of the women in that scene end up topless. Well, for no reason.
I mean, yeah.
But it's so fun.
Well, it's so fun, but it's so fun also that they're all, you know, before they all start fighting, they're all dressed up and nice, and, you know, they're sex workers, but they're having a nice, you know, it's nice fancy with party with all the clients, and they're supposed to be on good behavior. Nope, they all just hate Coffy, so they just get into this horrible fight, and it's just like, complete, like,
And
destruction of
Coffy
prefaces.
preemptively put razor blades in her hair.
That was iconic. Well, they're not fully preemptively. They spill a bunch of drinks on her, and then she's like, okay, this is gonna be a fight.
One of my favorite shots is, like, when Meg, one of the sex workers, grabs her hair, and then her hands are completely bloody, and she's looking at them and screaming.
Yeah. That was so fun. Such a fan of all of the ways that Coffy, like, hides and uses weapons. When she goes to
The bobby pin.
The bobby pin, that was pretty good. I like that she hides her gun to try to kill Vitroni in a stuffed animal.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just that clash of cute and violence. But yeah, and she also, I mean, there is so much, like, the bobby pin that she, like, sharpens, you know, and uses to just poke that guy, and, like, the razor blades.
That guy being played by Sid Haig. Sid Haig is an iconic actor of exploitation. He's most famously known for being Captain Spaulding in House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects.
Okay. The name was
you know him when you see him.
The names are familiar, but I was like, I don't actually know this guy, but I do feel like I should know this guy. But I was gonna say, I think it's also fun that, like, a lot of that violence is hidden in beauty products and, like, fashion.
Yeah, which I keep noting that's incredibly camp, just using traditionally feminine items as weapons.
Yeah. So would you then say that aspects of Kim Possible are camp? Because that's what I always, I mean, going back to my childhood, like, lipstick that is a laser, actual laser.
I'm blanking on her name, but the villain in Kim Possible.
Shigo?
Yes, Shigo is camp.
Yeah. I mean, like, you have you think it's a blow dryer, and then it's a grappling hook, and, you know, you think it's a compact case, and it's actually a knockout gas, and there's so much fun gadgetry that it's not just, like, typical James Bond gadgetry, because it's feminine, and that untraditionalness of it is camp.
I really liked the fashion in this movie. There's something about 1970s fashion that I just really like.
Is that I thought you liked 60s too.
Yeah, I think they might be neck and neck for me. Also, whenever Coffy is about to kill someone or fight someone, she will say a one-liner.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, she has a little line, and I'll see if I can find them on, like...
One quote that I did write down, which is not to do with violence, but is to do with sexuality, is I thought it was really fun that when she goes on that date early in the movie with Howard, there's, like, the police commissioner that he's meeting with, and she's, like, introduced to. He's kind of, like, flirting with her, and Howard's like, oh, that won't work on her, she's a liberated woman. And Coffy, she has this line that's like, I'm not that liberated, you know, let him finish. That was really fun. Of, like, yeah, I don't know, that, like, I guess, like, you said something about, like, respectability politics, or, like, you know, like, she's not a strong, independent woman who doesn't need no man. It's like, no, she's flirting and into guys and likes sex, but also then uses that to have power and get what she wants.
Yeah. So I found some quotes. One of them is, so you want to play with knives, huh? Well, you picked the wrong player.
Good one. For promo for this episode, you could just, like, find or put together a clip compilation of all her one-liners.
Yeah. I'll edit in lines here.
This is the end of your rotten life, you motherfucking dope pusher. It was easy for him because he really didn't believe it was coming. But it ain't gonna be easy for you because you better believe it's coming.
Wait. Wait, what do you want to go and do this for? Why? Why? Look here, I got your fix. Don't you want your fix?
No, but you do. Shit. Come on now. Look, I ain't gonna shoot you.
Please, don't shoot. Don't shoot. I'll pay you anything. $1 million. Whatever you want.
Okay, $1 million. You got a deal. I won't kill you. It's your friend Brunswick I want anyway. Where is he?
He left. He went to his house at the beach.
Yeah, I know the place. Thanks. That's a present for my little sister. And a nice cop named Carter.
Oh, another one is, now Mr. King Dope Pusher, you're gonna have a few irate customers pretty soon. Sugar instead of smack.
Yeah. So, is it actual sugar that she's putting in?
Maybe. It's possible.
Because then later, like, she's able to kind of get away because it's not actual drugs that they try to give to her. They being
I think those were within the film that was real.
Wait, what do you mean?
They're like in the narrative of the film, she is injected with heroin.
No,
even though,
I don't think so.
yeah.
Because she puts the fake stuff in King George's, hides that, in his little stash. Then we see him, measuring it out and puts it in his little drug carrying case, which I think is so iconic that it's a camera. And then they take that camera, when they kill King George, they take his camera, Vitroni's men, and then they still have that when they're going to kill her. And what they inject her with is the stuff, is the tainted or changed dosage from King George's stuff.
Yeah, that's possible. Maybe that's something I didn't catch.
Yeah. Well, I didn't catch the fake bodies, so
yeah, they're really just getting thrown around. Especially when King George is killed. That is a dummy.
Yeah. That's also a pretty brutal,
yeah.
That's just, this comes with the nature of these films. There's a lot of racism these black characters experience, and the way King George is killed is pretty brutal.
Yeah, there's really wild juxtaposition with the text of that scene and then seeing the dummy just kind of flail around. It's just wild.
Yeah. Since I brought up King George, I do want to talk about how fucking fabulous he is.
Yeah.
And
this is very much the subgenre that created the traditional pimp look, which is very colorful, and with the hat and the cane.
So colorful. Hat, cane, coat, cape thing in this gorgeous yellow. And he's got his own theme song.
Yes. Coffy also has her theme song.
Coffy has her own theme song. And it's a good theme song. But also I think it's really interesting that King George isn't even the main villain. But I guess he's
but he's just cool looking.
He's cool. And so they gotta give him a theme song. And he's also Howard's black, but I guess he's kind of he's also the kind of main villain who's the black character, and so I wondered if that was another reason why they made him extra cool.
I don't know. Yeah, I also feel like they maybe didn't give Howard a theme song because he's one of the characters that stands in for the man.
Yeah.
Quote unquote. And if there's any semblance of politics in blaxploitation films, is they do not like the man.
Yeah. Well, okay, what is the definition? Who is the man?
The establishment.
Yeah. Anyone who kind of maintains the power, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I find so interesting about Howard is that he he thinks that he can change it from the inside. He talks about
Yeah.
how he like can use the money and power that he's going to get as congressman to kind of help fix, at least, I mean, maybe it's just words, but he says like, oh, I can fix our, you know, like the kind of give more power to black people and help try to end this, you know, the drug crisis. But also he is taking money, he's being bankrolled by a bunch of people who are selling the drugs and maintaining those systems of power.
Yeah, one scene that I thought was really good at conveying who he is when at first it seems like he's just regularly talking to this group of people in the park about his ideas, and it seems really genuine and spontaneous, but then you hear someone off screen go, yeah, that was good, Howard, and then we see the cameras and the car, and like, oh, this is just an ad for his bid for Congress.
Yeah, that's a good job of showing the like the fakeness of it. Did you read anything, is there any writing that explicitly connects the ideas of exploitation to camp?
I feel like that's mostly me thing.
Okay. Well then,
like, I haven't done as much research into it, but I do feel like exploitation films count as camp, both with their kind of low culture connotations and also their sense of artifice and how fake a lot of things look, and also just the time that most of them were made in. Like the 70s is a camp decade, and also the 60s.
What what decades aren't camp?
The 1910s, the 1940s.
I was wondering if you would say like right now, but
no, right now feels camp.
So I feel like any era, this is a little besides the point, but I do feel like any, like, if you're able to like distill the aspects of the era in an extreme form, then any decade could be camp. It's just like you gotta look at the right pieces of media, or the right, like, not actors in like literal sense, but like, you know,
figures.
Yeah. So okay, I didn't mean to interrupt. Give me more of your pitch. Why exploitation films and camps go ahead and hand in hand?
They're just all about being exaggerated, and sometimes, most of the time, unintentionally being kind of fake and handmade. Just the content of them is so exaggerated and wild. Yeah, exploitation films are camp.
So this podcast episode is your soft launch for that analysis.
Yeah, although we have covered films that by technicalities are exploitation films, like Female Trouble, but I also feel like John Waters films are a genre of their own as well.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, what other films that we seen that are exploitation or discussed? What have we seen that's been kind of low budget?
I feel like low budget is an aspect of exploitation films, but it's also just a stylistic choice with some films.
Well, okay, is Vamp an exploitation
film? I don't know. Aesthetically, I'm not sure. Because many of what we know now is like the exploitation aesthetic is very much rooted in the 60s and 70s.
And that film was...
And Vamp is very 80s looking. Yeah, the example I was gonna give for an exploitation film that was not cheap is Tarantino's Death Proof. Which is my favorite Tarantino of the ones that I've seen. That movie was not cheap.
I need to see more Tarantino. I mean, after this film, I'm like, I need to finally watch Jackie Brown.
It's a lot of fun. a while ago I did rewatch the intro credits for Jackie Brown because they're so good.
Just the credits.
Yeah, the intro credits of Jackie Brown are one of my favorite scenes from that movie.
Okay.
Partly because they're such an homage to how blaxploitation film credits usually are. Like in this one, there it was an entire song playing over the credits, and most of the times the songs for blaxploitation films were made specifically for the films.
Yeah.
They're theme songs.
Yeah, I mean, I did notice that was a big part of the credits, opening credits, is that it gave the credits for the 2 theme songs and, you know, said who they were sung by and stuff. Which movies don't like. That does not exist in movies anymore. There need to be more original theme songs in movies.
Yeah, I feel like most of them nowadays are instrumental. These fully have lyrics telling you about the character and the character's name and who the character is.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess there's also like, there's something about, they're not, I'm trying to imagine what, you know what it is? You know what it is? A lot of songs these days, if they're original songs written for a movie, they're written for the credits, the end credits.
Yeah.
Opening credits aren't used anymore as a kind of like an establishment of the tone of a film.
Yeah, and I feel like the content of the lyrics happens just kind of accidentally. Like I'm suddenly reminded of that Twitter post that was all these rappers for the Spider-Verse movies need to keep their lyrics child friendly, so they just end up rapping about Spider-Man.
Yeah. Well, you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about Eminem's end credits song for Elvis.
Venom! Oh, no, also the Venom one.
Oh, God!
He's also like, Venom. I'd argue that the Venom movies are camp.
Well, didn't he write one for Elvis, too?
Yes.
An original song for Elvis where he compares himself to Elvis?
Yes. Which is not the first time he has compared himself to Elvis.
Wait, when else has he compared himself to Elvis?
In, one of the classics. I'll send it to you later.
He has never made me swoon like Elvis made people.
Real.
I think there's something like so, I don't know, there's something really simple about opening credits, especially in this film, where it was just like visually simple. It's just a car, it's like a shot out a car like windshield of just like driving through a city streets. That to me is like, that's kind of this like low budget aspect of just there's not any crazy action or effects going on. Really, the focus,
there is crazy action in the film.
Well, in the film, but not the credits, because it's just the credits, and it like that's like within the first 10 minutes of the film, you know.
Yeah, which leads me to the crazy action.
Okay,
especially in the last act.
Yeah,
I really liked the crazy action.
Well, okay, so what are all the action sequences that we get? We get well, first we get her shooting that guy in his apartment. We get the masked guys beating them up and taking off Coffy's top. Well, I mean, it was implied that he was gonna rape her. Like, that's which, okay, that's one thing that I did find interesting about this film. She is taking revenge, but never for herself. Even though she does get, like, she's violated, she is taking revenge for her sister, and then she's taking revenge for Carter.
Yeah, like, the intentions are selfless, but I do think she likes the violence.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that, like, I think that there's sometimes...
It's never fully about herself.
Yeah, but also I think there's, like, sometimes, you know, there's a lot of complaints about, like, oh, we're strong women, they're always just empowered by, like, you know, like, why do we have these rape narratives, and why do they awful things happen for them to, why do awful things have to happen to women for them to then be empowered? And, like, awful things do happen to Coffy, but, like, in a way that doesn't...
It's mostly about the awful things that happens to people she knows.
Exactly. And to me, that, I don't know, I mean, it just felt like something to point out. And also, I'm glad that I didn't have to watch any scenes of her having sex that she didn't want to be having, because all the scenes that we see of her having sex are she's enjoying it, or she, before the sex can get very far, she's shooting that guy. Like,
yeah. The entire like third act action is really fun for me.
yeah, yeah,
Like starting off with the bobby pin kill,
yeah.
and then she takes someone's shotgun, waits at a little bench for someone with a car to come by. She tells him, "Hey, I want to go get something at the liquor store." He leaves the car, she steals the car, drives back to the bench to pick up the shotgun, and then she heads back to Vetroni's house and drives through the front door.
She kills someone that way. Well, also, even before that, when she's running away from the like crooked cops who are trying to kill her, after she does the bobby pin stab, she's like weaving through traffic, and one of the cops gets killed by a car that way too. That was a fun death, because you got to see the blood splatter on the pavement and like this like. But yeah, then she kills another guy with the car.
Yeah,
and then uses the shotgun to kill. I think she kills the commissioner that way, and then also Vetroni while he's he's in the pool.
Yeah. He like gets thrown in the pool.
He like trips and falls to the pool. He's like such a little like pathetic little guy.
And while all this is happening, Howard leaves to the beach house, I think.
Yeah.
And then after everyone in Vetroni's house is killed, she heads to the beach house, and Howard is really apologetic.
Yeah.
It kind of asking for her back.
And it honestly almost works. Except then this other woman is like...
Then a topless woman shows up. She appears from the stairs. And then she shoots him in the balls.
Yeah.
End of movie.
Yeah.
And that's how the movie ends.
Well, the movie ends with her like walking on the beach. Which...
But right before that, she shot him in the balls. And to me, that's how the movie ends.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it wasn't as victorious as I thought it would be, the ending. Even though shooting him in the balls was pretty great, and seeing his crying little face.
Would have been really fun to see that scene in a movie theater.
Yeah. But I don't know. Something about the shot of her walking on the beach felt really sad to me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a film that's not really made to examine deep feelings. It definitely feels like a film made for spectacle. But it still kind of it still left me with this little like, this is sad. We got this the violence is over, and I guess you can hope that there is some catharsis that she was able to get from that, but we don't see any reflection, catharsis, anything. We just know that now the violence is over, and so the film ends. There's no reflection on that, which I guess is the genre.
Yeah. And again, like, this is why there's been a recent academic interest in this genre, because there are meaningful things to read into these films and to analyze these films for. Like, they are spectacle and nonsense, but they're not just spectacle and nonsense.
Well, what do you read from this film?
I read that it's very, like, it very much values Coffy as a character. And it puts genuine value into her story.
So do you think it's a happy ending?
I don't think it's a happy ending, but rather an ending that emphasizes her character and what she's been through.
And you think it, like, so you think it ends with respect?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I mean, I definitely think that, like, this film definitely treats Coffee with respect and Pam Grier with respect. She does not feel like she is, if we're going back to me being like, oh, what is being exploited? She's not. Yeah, not at all.
Even though she's topless in a lot of scenes, the
Yeah.
movie still cares about the character.
Oh, the toplessness is not, that's her in power. I don't know. I'm just kind of struck thinking about how she has that conversation with towards the beginning of the film after going to the rehabilitation center where her sister is, and she's with Carter, and she asks him, like, would you kill, like, doesn't this make you angry, like, do you think it's okay to, like, kill because of this? And he's like, well, what good would that do? Because it's all like, there's this long chain that goes all the way back to the people farming. And to me, that's just kind of what I leave the film thinking about, even if it might not be trying to intentionally ask those questions. To me, I was just, she kills the people who hurt her and hurt the people she cares about, but I don't know if she actually changed anything. And
Yeah.
I wonder if, I don't know, the fact that we see her just kind of walking alone on the beach and that's what we end the movie with, we don't really see victory, because I don't really think that there was one. And if that, I mean, that is a critique of the man. That is a critique of the system, the chain, as Carter refers to it, which is quite, I mean, that is a evocative imagery to refer to it as a chain.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the analysis worthy things of exploitation films as a whole is how they can pose these questions. And the conclusion of exploitation films is, in real life, sure, it's probably not worth it, but in film, it's okay because it's film.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay because it's fun and entertaining.
Well, yeah, and maybe it's not entirely fair to say that Coffee didn't change anything, because she did get something out of it. She did get revenge.
She killed a really racist man.
Yeah, and a bunch of racist cops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say?
Oh, okay. Here's what last thing to leave on, which I'm glad I made note of it, because otherwise I would have forgotten about it. I also think it's interesting that both in her conversations with Carter and Howard, Coffee says that she feels like she's in a dream.
Yeah.
That she's kind of like, she's like, oh, like, she says something to Carter like, oh, if you ever, like, kind of like, you're just so angry that it feels like you're watching yourself. And I don't know if that is to be a reference to the state of her mental health, that she's kind of disassociating because of trauma, if that's because that's kind of a way to kind of excuse her from some of the violence too, that it's not like, oh, she's not really the one doing this, it's just something that's kind of the rage is flowing through her, not from her. Maybe it's a bit of a meta narrative.
Yeah.
We're all watching her do this, including herself.
And it's not real.
And it's not real. Yeah. It's Giving Camp, hosted by Saffron and Hefta-Gaub
and Fabiola Liaño.
Our theme music is written by Harrison Lurie.
And the podcast is edited by Fabiola Liaño.
Follow us on Patreon. Support us on Patreon.
On Instagram, it's Giving Camp Pod. And on Twitter, it's Giving Camp Pod. Without the it's. We're on Patreon at It's Giving Camp Pod, and shout out to our patron, Nicole Venito.